Welcome to Creation Magazine Live. The magazine covers many common questions that people have about Christianity and how Christianity, particularly Genesis, the creation story, fits with what scientists are telling us about what they're finding today.
Right.
Oftentimes scientists who are not Christians are promoting ideas that are anti-Genesis along an evolutionary line. And one of those things is, of course, the timeline of when creation happened, or when the universe started.
Right, so you commonly hear references to millions of years, long ages, things like that, in just general literature, general media,
it's
education,
everywhere.
everywhere. And so when you look at the Bible, not only does the Bible not mention millions of years, but it actually teaches against a long age time scale. It's actually anti-long ages if you just look at what it plainly says. So this leaves many Christians with a lot of questions. What about these dating methods they're talking about? That's exactly what we're going to talk about this particular article here today. How dating methods work. It's not online or offline or whatever like that. It's just radioisotope dating is really what they're talking about.
Oh, that kind of dating. Yes.
Now this is by Dr. Taz Walker. He's our senior geologist in our Australian office. And I love Taz's writing because he keeps it simple. Very understandable. He's well known for doing geological excursions. He'll take groups of people out into, in Australia.
On creation retreats. And I love his as a DVD, Biblical Geology, Properly Understanding the Rocks. You ought to get a copy of that.
Right.
Here's a scientist, a geologist, and a lot of scientists, they do great work, and CMI employs a lot of PhD scientists. In fact, more than any other Christian organization.
Right.
But a lot of the scientists, they're speaking way up here. Right. There's kind of a technical jargon.
Even the terminology, because that's the language they're using in their field.
Yes, yes. Taz can explain geology at a level that a non-geologist can instantly grasp what he's getting at.
Exactly. So here's his article here. Addressing the students, so he's talking about, his article's talking about a classroom situation where he's teaching about dating methods. Addressing the students, I used a measuring cylinder to illustrate how scientific dating works. My picture showed a water tap dripping into the cylinder. It was clearly marked so that my audience could see that it held exactly 300 milliliters of water. So you've got the cylinder, 300 milliliters, and a tap dripping into it. The diagram also showed that the water was dripping at a rate of 50 milliliters per hour. 300 milliliters, taps dripping at a rate of 50 milliliters per hour.
Okay.
I asked, how long has the water been dripping into the cylinder? So, of course, some bright kids in the class. Immediately someone called out, 6 hours. Good. How did you work that out? By dividing the amount of water in the cylinder, 300 milliliters, by the rate, 50 milliliters per hour.
Sure.
Excellent, I said. See how easy it is to calculate the age of something scientifically? Every dating method that scientists use works exactly the same way. It involves measuring something that is changing with time. So, makes sense. And this is the way it's taught in school, obviously. People began to relax once they understood that the science of dating is not so difficult. Then I surprised them. The problem is that 6 hours is the wrong answer. They looked puzzled and disbelieving. I set this experiment up, and I can tell you that the water has only been dripping for 1 hour. Can you tell me what happened? So now the creator of the scenario here says, no, that's not right. It's only been dripping for 1 hour. Can you tell me what happened? So now they've got to come up with a different explanation. After they'd composed themselves, someone called out, the tap was tripping faster in the past. Perhaps, I said. The cylinder was nearly full when you started. Maybe, but can you see what you're doing? I asked. In order to calculate an age, you made assumptions about the past. You assumed the rate had always been 50 milliliters per hour and that the cylinder was empty when it started. Based on those assumptions, you calculated the time of 6 hours. So what he was pointing out to them is, yeah, that was a great logical conclusion you came to, your first, answer of 6 hours, but they weren't recognizing that they had to make assumptions to come to that conclusion. It didn't just naturally fall out. I mean, in a sense, it came naturally, but because of certain assumptions, right?
Yes, and every single dating method is just
laden
has
with
the
assumptions.
same assumptions as this simple example here.
They nodded. You were perfectly happy with that answer. Not one of you challenged it. They agreed. Then, when I told you the correct answer, did you realize what you did? You quickly changed your assumptions about the past in order to agree with the age I told you. Right? They made different assumptions. Every scientist must first make assumptions about the past before he can calculate an age. If the result seems okay, then he'll be happily accept it. But if it does not agree with the other information, then he will change his assumption so that the answer does agree. It does not matter if the calculated age is too old or too young. There are always many assumptions a scientist can make to get a consistent answer. Suddenly the lights went on. My audience saw in a nutshell the way dating methods work. Scientific dating is not a way of measuring, but a way of thinking. I love that article. It's just, it makes it so clear, right? And of course, again, in the media, we're all often talking, hey, carbon dating, it can absolutely date something. Radioisotope dating, it can absolutely, different methods can absolutely date, millions of years, et cetera, et cetera. We know that this rock is this old. We know this, and it's stated so, with such authority that people, well, scientists know this. You'll see people the way they're emphatic, but we know this. Scientists have proven this.
Therefore, the Bible has to be wrong.
Right. So, and it's just a great way to understand. Wait a sec, there's a lot of assumptions being made. Now, what I like about the article is not only is he giving you that snapshot understanding of that, but he gives an explanation of it working that way in practice.
Okay.
So this little box here gives an actual example of this happening in real life. He said a layer of volcanic ash in East Africa called the KBS tuff became famous through the human fossils found nearby. Using the potassium-argon method, Fitch and Miller, scientists, were the first to measure the age of the tuff. The result of 212 to 230 million years did not agree with the age of the fossils, elephant, pig, ape, and tools, so they rejected the date. So, okay, we're going to use this method, but no, it doesn't match to the other data we have, so we're going to reject that date.
Yeah,
so
or it doesn't fit the evolutionary scenario.
Right. So it doesn't fit. We don't check. They said the sample was contaminated with excess argon. Well, I guess anyway.
Okay.
We'll
That's like, well, the beaker was partially full when. Yeah.
Right. Using new samples of feldspar and pumice, they reliably dated the tuff at 2.6 million years, which agreed nicely. Later, this date was confirmed by two other dating methods, paleomagnetism and fission tracks, and was widely accepted. Then, Richard Leakey found a skull called KNM-ER1470 below the KBS tuff, a skull that looked far too modern to be 3 million years old.
Uh-oh.
So Curtis and the others redated the KBS tuff using selected pumice and feldspar samples and obtained an age of 1.82 million years. This new date agreed with the appearance of the new skull. Tests by other scientists using paleomagnetism and fission tracks confirmed the lower date. So by 1980, there was a new remarkably concordant date for the KBS tuff, and this one was the one that became widely accepted, which illustrates that contrary to popular belief, the dating methods are not the primary way that ages are decided. The dating methods do not lead, but follow. Their results are always interpreted to agree with other factors, such as the evolutionary interpretation of geology and fossils. So, of course, we've highlighted these types of things in Creation Magazine and on our website many times. These are not absolute dates. You cannot absolutely date things according to these methods. So anyway, head to creation.com and you can find a lot of similar articles in this area.